This is an introduction on browsing Git. So there are several tools to use Git, but there are also some lower level tools to actually look at the objects themselves. And that's what this tutorial is for. So if we run show ref, we can see all of our references, both remote, local, and tags. If we run cat file with the -p option, we can look at any of these objects. Every one of these SHAs is a commit object in the database, and if we actually want to see the commit object, we simply do git cat file -p, and it gives us a more raw version of that commit object. So it shows us the tree that it points to, any parents that it has, author, the committer, and the message. And that is essentially the only thing that is stored in that object on disk. So if we wanted to do a really slow version of a git log, we can do it manually through the cat file command. So if you look at the ref, you cat file for that SHA, and then you cat file the parent SHA of that one, and so on and so forth. You can see that it's almost identical to git log -3 of the original SHA. So if we want to traverse the parent references, we can actually do that manually. Another thing that we can do is look at the trees. So if we want to, we cat file one of the tag names, it's going to give us the commit that tag points to. And then I can put in cat file -p the tree SHA, and it'll do basically a tree list for me. And I can do the same thing by just doing the tag or the branch name and then a little tilde in tree. That says the tree that is pointed to by this commit is the shorthand for that. So if I look at the 10th parent of the master, it'll give me that commit object, and then I can look at the tree of that. ls tree is a command that is basically similar to cat file -p when you give it a tree SHA. ls tree will only accept tree SHAs, whereas cat file will accept any object SHA, and will just give you the best way it knows how to print that out. So if I give it a blob like this, it'll just print out the blob, the contents of the blob, and I could redirect that into a file if I wanted to save that somewhere else. So if I list the tree for the 10th parent of the master, if you give it a commit, it will list out the tree of that commit points to. Then I can cat file any of the blobs or trees in there. So the first one gives me a subtree, and then I can cat one of the blobs if I want to see what that blob actually looks like. So the cat file command is a way to basically inspect Git at any level. You can give it any of the objects, and it will give you back the raw information of that object. You can also run ls tree, which only works on trees, but you can run it recursively. So instead of, whereas ls tree will normally just give you that tree like this, if you pass it -r, it will give you that tree and all of the subtrees. And it will only give you the blobs of all of the subtrees. It won't give you the tree SHAs. If you want to do that, you can do -r-t. That'll be recursive, and it'll include the tree SHAs as well. So if I wanted to see what type a particular commit or a particular Git object was, I can do cat file -t. -p stood for pretty, and it will just print out the prettiest version of that SHA or that object that it can. So if it's a commit, it'll show you the commit information. If it's a tree, it'll do ls tree. If it's a blob, it'll give you the contents of the file. But I can also do -t and see what type it is: blob, tree, commit. -s will give me the size, and -p will give me a pretty representation of that object. So cat file is a very useful command for inspecting the Git object directory. gitk is another interesting way of being able to browse a Git repository. This is a visual way. It's a tool written in TCL/TK, and I can browse through and see a graph of all of my branches and how they relate to each other. So each of the lines here points to a commit, and the lines are the parents of that. And I can click on the child's or the parent's SHAs, and it will automatically jump around to that area. I can also run gitk with most of the useful commands that I can pass to git log. So I can do a since command, and it'll only show me the commits that have been in since that date. This is helpful, especially if you have a very large Git repository like the Git source code repository, which is very large. You can do since or until or both to get a range of commits that you're interested in looking at. Finally, you can also pass gitk a specific path, a path limiter. So it can either be a directory or an object or a file, and it will only give you the commits that have involved that file. Another interesting thing that you can do is there is a Perl script that is distributed with Git called gitweb, and there's a command called instaweb that will start up a new web server and run that CGI script for you. And it will run with Apache or Lydie, or in this case, Webrick, if you pass it the httpd command, and you can browse through via a web interface, whatever Git repository you start this in. And the other interesting thing is you saw that it automatically starts up and redirects your browser for you. On Mac, it just runs the open command, so whatever your default browser is will try to open up the new URL. By default, it starts it out on localhost and port 1234, but you can change either of those. You can bind it specifically to localhost as well so that other people can't browse it, or you could share it. And once it starts it up, it keeps it running. So if you actually want to stop it, you have to run the command again with the -- stop. And you can also take these files and put them in your CGI bin directory on your real web server to do it more permanently.